Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Hey, welcome back, everybody. If you're a parent, even a grandparent, you know there's a challenge there when it comes to communication and your kids, and especially if they are teens. Part of what we're going to talk about today with a gentleman who has made it his life's work helping parents, helping children as a school psychologist. He's our diamond of the decade, and he's worked for many years at the Reed Union School District in and around San Francisco, California. So much to dig into today. Thrilled to have him back with us. He really just a grounded, wonderful guy. And we also call this Good Advice Helps with Dr. Allan Gold on the program. Allan, welcome back. How you doing today?
Okay, thank you very much.
Wonderful to have you back here. Learned so much last time we got together, and the communication thing, I get it. You know, I have teenagers, and I'm always looking for different ways to break the ice or break through in terms of communication. Where do we begin with that in terms of communicating with our kids?
Okay. Well, the job of communication is a progressive one. I like to think of parents with two major roles, manager and consultant. When children are young, parents are the managers. They know exactly what they're doing. They tell them what to do. But as they gradually get older, 8, 9, 10, 11, they really want to be more independent. And I think a block to good communication is really not being able to listen to their kids. As a consultant, particularly around social issues, a parent would need to learn to listen, to ask questions, to find out if their child needed and wanted some help, to brainstorm solutions, to come up with trying to come up with a possible solution, and then eventually evaluating it. Now, that doesn't mean that once a kid is 10 that a parent can't be the boss. You know, certainly parents need to manage, lots of different things. But it's a gradual process. And for teenagers, it's really complicated. I would like to recommend a book, actually, that I found maybe 10 years ago. It's called I'd Listen to My Parents If They'd Just Shut Up.
Oh, I love that. I'm literally writing that down.
Yeah, it's by Anthony Wolf, W-O-L-F, Ph.D., psychologist. And it's very readable, and it deals with all kinds of issues that teenagers have, whether it's addiction to electronics or disrespect or academics or sexual or drinking or anything like that. And the message, though, is that learning to listen is really, really important. And I think if kids feel that their parents are listening, that conveys the message of respect. I know in my job, I had kids who definitely wanted to come and talk to me because I would listen. I would also ask lots of questions, but when somebody's asking you questions, the implication there is that they're really interested in you and they care about you. They're not just being nosy. So I think that's very, very important. Another aspect of communication that I taught kids a lot and is really important for parents as well is how to communicate your feelings, identify your feelings in a situation, and then communicate them in the way that a parent or a friend or a child might be more inclined to actually listen. And more specifically, I used to talk to kids about hard feelings and soft feelings. A hard feeling is basically anger, extreme annoyance, frustration, and if we direct our emotions to somebody else with hard feelings, the chances are they will either give those same hard feelings back, or they'll stick their fingers in their ears and just not listen, or run away, or something like that. And I think that's true. When somebody gets angry at us, what do? We get angry back. We swear at them, or whatever it happens to be. But I tried to get kids to identify their softer feelings. And by a softer feeling, I mean ones like sadness, confusion, hurt, things like that really underlie. When we get angry, I think it's true for all of us. If we get angry, that's the surface feeling. But if we take a deep breath and really think a little bit more, okay, what's really creating this anger? And it's usually a softer feeling. It's usually somebody hurt my feelings, or I'm really worried. I'm concerned. An example for parents to kids, say a kid is dawdling around in the morning, and they're going to be late for school, and the parents get really upset. Come on, hurry up, get dressed. We've got to go. And if the parents thought about it, they might be able to say, come on, I'm really worried that I'm going to be late and my boss is going to get mad at me. Can we please hurry up? I'm not guaranteeing that every child is going to follow the higher road if they're addressed in a way that isn't angry. But I think there's a better chance there. And certainly for kids talking to kids, instead of saying, if they're called something nasty, they could say it back, or they could say, I'm really confused. I don't understand why you called me that. That hurts my feelings. And so these are all about I statements, actually, the letter I, rather than you did this, you're always that, that kind of thing. But if they can own the feeling and identify the underlying feeling that is prompting the anger, then I think there's a better chance for everybody to communicate, including adults.
I love all this. This is just real-world advice in terms of breaking that communication barrier. What about the way you speak, or the way you phrase things? For example, and I'm just going to share one thing that I've never forgot, and it worked for me.
Sure.
And this was when my daughter, a couple of years ago, when she was like 13 or 14, and so many parents, kid comes home from school, you say the same thing. How was your day? Fine. You already set yourself up for that type of answer. So she came home one day, and I rethought it, and I reframed it, and I said, and we're taught, look, she changed up her hair a little bit. So to make a connection, I said, what's it feel like to have the best hair of any girl on the planet?
Okay.
And right away she goes, really good. I did this and I did that and I changed conditioner. And so it was just a reframing of just a basic statement that engaged my daughter. Any suggestions, any thoughts on that?
I think that's great. Because kids, when they come home from school, parents often ask, how was school today? Fine. I said that to my parents.
Sure, of course. Same.
Another possible suggestion is if families have dinner together, and I used to do this in all of my groups that I did, talk about ups and downs for the day. And include parents in that too. What an up is something good that happened during the day, and a down is something not good that happened during the day. Or you can call them roses and thorns, or highs and lows, whatever label you want. But that's also another kind of gives people the opportunity, and parents can start out. They can say, Oh, I had a really difficult time with my boss today. He or she chewed me out, but one good thing that happened was blah, blah, blah. And then kids might also be able to share at the dinner table. But I think rephrasing the question, and also with a compliment, like what you said about your daughter, was complimentary. How does it feel to have the best looking hair of anybody? And, I think that's another thing with communication that is so vital. I might have mentioned it last time, but helping children build self-esteem is so critical. And what do they get most of the time? They get criticism from parents and criticism from teachers. And I think we often ignore the communicating the recognition of some positive behaviors or actions, and that it just feels better. We all know that feels better when we get a compliment. It took me a long time to kind of realize it wasn't a zero-sum game. I used to think when I was younger that if I give a compliment to somebody, then I'm going to lose out. And I learned eventually that that's not true. If one is complimentary, it multiplies. You get it back, and it really. And I do that all the time now. If somebody does something that's positive, whether it's how they look or what they do, I make sure that I recognize that. And so for parents to do that with kids, particularly because they're always correcting kids, and kids need to learn that way. But if they can at least balance it out a little bit, that helps with their self-esteem, and it's a positive aspect of communication.
Wow, I love the way you frame that, and it really does make an impact on when you change it around and you're intentional about the conversation with your children. What if your career? This is what you've done as a school psychologist, many, 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 many years. Along the way, there, what accomplishments are you most proud of?
Well, that's a very good question, and I don't want to sound like I'm bragging or anything, but I really am proud of the positive impacts that I've had on many children and families. And you don't always know that, particularly with kids, because I've had kids later on, maybe from high school, or even later say, you were really helpful to me. But they don't recognize that. When I retired a year and a half ago at my retirement party, there were many teachers and parents and administrators and former students, and they spoke about my service to them. And it was really, really touching. In fact, I said, when I got a chance to talk, I said, thank you so much for your comments. It really made me feel good. And there's a lesson to be learned here, which is nobody should have to wait till their funeral to be able to hear good things about themselves. And obviously at your funeral you don't hear that stuff. But so that, again, that was my lesson, to give compliments while people can accept them. But over the years, I was very proud of the variety of activities that I was able to engage in. Many school psychologists spend most of their time assessing students for disabilities, which of course I did. But I also created groups for teaching social skills, supporting kids whose parents were separated or divorced, kids who had special needs siblings. I started that maybe about 10 years ago, recognizing that if you have a special needs sibling, where does all the parental attention go? It goes to the other kid. So I started a group there. I started groups for kids a few years who had fortunately, that wasn't all the time, but I guess one of the things that I'm proud of is kind of taking advantage of opportunities to set up groups or interventions. I can keep on going. About 8 or 9 years ago, I set up a T Club at the middle school. That stands for Teach Equity and Acceptance, for middle school students to discuss many, many differences among people and to learn about and how to counteract the discrimination that results from being different, like racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Muslimism, ageism, sexism, learning and emotional disturbances. And we would have lots of kids come for lunch to participate in that, and they would even do their own presentations sometimes. And the discussions were fabulous among these 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Then about 6 years ago, I started a Gender Sexuality Alliance Club for middle school students who were questioning their own gender identity or their sexual orientation and needed a safe place to be with other similar students and discuss their issues. And I would go into classrooms to discuss topics that were relevant for students. In recent years, I did a lot of discussing of bullying and meanness, and I may actually do that again. I just had lunch yesterday with one of my former students, who's now 48, and
wow,
I've been working with her daughter, kind of a quirky girl, and I met with her. She's now 12, and she was telling me about how a lot of kids in her class were mean. She goes to a private school, a religious private school, and I spoke to the mom and said, I'm more than willing to go into the classroom and talk about bullying and meanness. And for the last, I would say for 8 to 10 years, it's escalated. And, I could go into why I think that happens, but, not that when I was a kid, kids couldn't be mean too, but it seems to be escalating.
Well, I would have to take a guess. I'm far from the expert, but social media is probably something that's fueling that.
Yeah, I think social media does, and I also think the role models that famous people in the country, whether they're actors or athletes or politicians, there's permission to be derogatory to other people, and whether the kids actually know that or not. But I've always found that kids are very, very insightful. Parents often don't think kids are aware of, what's going on, but they really are from the time they're maybe 5 or 6 or 7. Parents who are fighting and they don't think their kids are aware of it. Well, they are, and so I don't know if. What goes on television, I think it does filter down into the society that it's permission to be mean to other people. So I did a lot of work trying to get kids to understand that this is not okay. And then another thing that I did for years was what called the Touch program. I did this for 4th and 5th graders, informing them about forms of child abuse to protect their safety. We talked about physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, not in great depth, and neglect. And did role-playing with the kids and really helped them to understand what to do if they hear something's going on with a friend or themselves. So, I really, felt proud of the fact that I could do all these different kinds of things, and I didn't do it from the beginning. It was like, if an issue came up, I would try to figure out a way, okay, how can I present this to students so that they could learn from it? And then the other thing that I really loved to do was, 2 other things. One was my setting up math clubs. Now, most school psychologists wouldn't do that, but I had my math background. I mentioned that I had a bachelor's in math and was going to get a PhD in statistics. And my own experience as a child was that I was actually way ahead of the grade level, and my dad, who was a math teacher, used to bring home books for me to work on. So I started math clubs about 35 years ago for kids who were high achieving in math, and I wanted to challenge them. And we would participate in local and national contests, and they really enjoyed that as well. And then the other thing that I really was proud of starting were grade-level parent meetings. I've done that for 30 years or something, where I would invite parents at each grade level to meet in person, and I would discuss the developmental information about kids at that age. So if it was third graders, we talk about 8-year-olds. What was their physical development that was normal at that age, cognitive development, social development, emotional development, and moral development. And the ultimate purpose of that was really to create a network for parents so they could realize they were all going through similar challenges in raising their kids and feel more comfortable sharing information, which, as kids get older, kids may share with friends information that they wouldn't say to their parents. So, what if your kid comes home and says, I think my friend's having sex with somebody, and they're only in the 7th grade, and what do you do as a parent? Do you tell the other parent? Well, I'm sure and any time I've had these meetings and I've said, if somebody knew something that was about your kid and you didn't know, would you want to know? And I've never had a parent say, no, I wouldn't want to know that. It's very difficult information. I've had to share that kind of information myself with parents. But I think building from the time kids are very young, that communication, it goes back to communication. How comfortable do you feel sharing information with another parent so that you work together? I mean, I think being a parent is probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest jobs in the world.
Thank you for saying that, because parents deal with so much. It gets down to an emotional level, the communication level. They're set, and then there are many families are blended, and that adds even more layers of challenge. One thing I truly detect from you, Allan, is that you are approachable. You are realistic. You're approachable. You communicate so fabulously in what you do, and just the vibe. I got to believe all those years that when you work with students on, a psychological level, that they felt that energy, that you get them, if you will. Did you feel that was going on for you?
Yeah, I really did. Although it probably took me, I used to tell my interns it took me 25 years to feel like I really knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, yes, I really, and the older I got, the more experienced I got. I mean, I would used to say to myself, why do these kids want to talk to this old man? And but
because he's a cool dude.
Yeah, because I tried to be cool and laugh with kids. And I remember a couple of years ago, I had about 5 third-grade girls, and we were working on a social problem that they were having, and they got into my Scotch tape and taped their noses up to their foreheads. So what did I do? I taped my nose to my forehead too. I mean, it's interesting to be both serious and wise when you have to be, and certainly there are many situations that I was not joking around, but also to show that I could be playful and laugh. One of the last things I did when I would have a group of students come to me to solve a problem, I would make a circle with all of us, including me, and everybody would raise their right hand and grab somebody else's right hand, unless there were an odd number of people, but anyway, worked it out, and then grabbed somebody else's left hand. So we would be in a knot, and I say, okay, now let's untie this knot. And so they'd climb under and over and turn backwards and everything, but they had to keep holding their hands, and I was in that too. So I said, why do you think we did this? And I said, this is like the problem that you came to me to try to solve, and what we did, we solved the problem by untying the knot. So, just playful little things like that, I think, made kids comfortable coming to me.
Yeah, it wasn't that feeling of there's a psychologist behind the desk. Now I have to say, like going to see your boss. That uneasy feeling. You're approachable. Just about out of time, Allan. Great talking with you again today. Just amazing advice for parents to navigate the world of communication. And one more reason why you are dispensing that advice as our diamond of the decade. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Steve, and we'll talk again.
Looking forward to it. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.